Chronic Illness Therapist podcast. This is meant to be a place where people with chronic illnesses can come to feel heard, seen, and safe while listening to mental health therapists and other medical professionals talk about the realities of treating difficult conditions. This might be a new concept for you, one in which you never have to worry about someone inferring that it's all in your head. We dive deep into the human side of treating complex medical conditions and help you find professionals that leave you feeling hopeful for the future. I hope you love what you learn here, and please consider leaving a review or sharing this podcast with someone you love. Therapy is not about fixing your problems or hiring somebody to fix your problems for you. It's not about finding somebody who has their whole life put together and therefore can then teach you how to put your life together. Chances are you can read any blog on the internet, talk to many teachers and influencers and coaches and even some therapists who will give the impression that they have cracked the code. They have figured out exactly what it is that helps you heal X, Y, and Z. Heal your relationship with yourself, heal your relationship to food, heal your relationship with your partner or partners, heal your chronic illness, heal your whatever it is. We are so caught up in healing in this culture, and hey, look, don't get me wrong, it would be really nice to not wake up with joint pain or brain fog or this overall unease in your body and in your mind that makes it really difficult to get through your day every day. But at the end of the day, the only thing that heals us are relationships. So when you enter into therapy, you are forming a relationship. And sometimes relationships don't work out. Oftentimes they shift and change and evolve over the years. And it's really hard to know when you should stay and when you should go. When am I kind of just running away again and therefore I should really stay in this relationship? Or is this normal difficulty that occurs in all relationships and it's something that I'm supposed to stay and stick it out with? We try to communicate our needs, and oftentimes our needs are misunderstood. It's incredibly difficult to understand when a child is crying because they need their diaper changed, or they are hungry, or they are too cold or too hot, or maybe their tummy hurts, and there's no way for them to tell that to the adults in their life. So if from childhood, from infanthood, you were consistently and chronically misunderstood, and then eventually grow up in a family where that misunderstanding turns into your family telling you, hey, you actually don't know what it is you want and need. We know what you want and need, and it's not that. If that is a consistent experience for you over and over and over and over again, we grow up learning that people can't be trusted, and we ourselves can't be trusted. Therapy is about learning to rebuild that trust. So again, showing up with a therapist where you might not be quite sure if they're the right fit for you or not. You are absolutely always welcome to switch therapists and find somebody who maybe meshes well with you more. But unless there's harm being done, I would lean towards encouraging you to stick with therapy even when it's really hard. You will learn so much more about yourself. Even if the therapist isn't pointing out every little thing to you and giving you great insight, That frustration that you feel is such an invitation for leaning into what's happening for you and learning from it, getting curious about it. And healers, we've had different types of healers culturally throughout time, everything from traditional Chinese medicine doctors to Native American shamans. There are different beliefs about healing throughout cultures too, everything from plant medicine to, only things that are verified in a lab, validated and verified. There are so many different types of healing rituals, and at the end of the day, it always comes back down to relationship. We learn from others that we trust, and sometimes we learn by watching people do what we know we don't want to do. But at some point, you cannot learn how to do something that you want to do without seeing it modeled for you in some way. In this day and age, we have a lot of ways to make that happen. It can be literally something as simple as watching YouTube videos on the topic it is that you're wanting to learn, or listening to podcasts like this. So it doesn't always have to mean that, if you can't find somebody who you trust in real life, who then takes you under their wing and mentors you and shows you the ropes and all of these things, that you're doomed. You're not doomed. There are so many different ways that we can learn how to improve and change and grow for the better. But what's important about eventually adding people in real life people into that equation is the acceptance that comes along with relationships. What we want to be looking for, if you haven't found this already, is these little moments where you just realize that somebody has accepted your way of being in the world. And while it's wonderful to have, again, mentors or parents who loved you unconditionally and showed you that no matter what you did that was frustrating or upsetting, that you are loved and allowed to be who you are, the reality is a lot of us don't have this single great person or people in our lives. So if that's you, I would encourage you to really start to get curious about little moments in your day where your environment says you are allowed to move in this way, in this space, and there will be no negative consequences and potentially even positive consequences for you showing up the way that you are. It could be in the grocery store when you are, handing your card to the cashier and you just ask how their day is and they respond positively. One could argue that our body never makes mistakes because all of the pain and inflammation and digestive upset and all of these things that we experience on a daily basis if you live with a chronic illness. And I really do believe that our body is more about not making mistakes than making mistakes. I think that all of our difficulties with our body have some kind of message that they're trying to teach us. It's just that we don't know its language yet. So, but with that aside, my main point here is that when our body shows up and does something that we deem as a mistake, such as, again, joint pain, brain fog, things that are just really difficult to handle, we then learn that our bodies are not okay and we fear them, we hate them, we want to throw them away. And it tells our body to really amp up and do more to get our attention, because that's what it needs to do in order to show you, hey, I'm here, I'm trying to tell you something. And so when you stop and pause and listen and feel what it is you're feeling inside, which is a really, really difficult thing. It's a really difficult task, hence the need for community and healers who have been through what it is you're trying to accomplish, so that they not only have textbook knowledge, but they also have this intuitive wisdom about the process. But when you stop to feel what you're feeling, it tells our body, hey, you're here, I hear you, I'm listening, tell me what's going on. Now, when you do that with a toddler and you ask them to tell you what it is that is going on, especially before they can even talk, think a 1-year-old, they're likely just going to scream some more. And so then you might have the urge to, and your body's doing the same thing. It's just screaming some more because it doesn't have the language to say, hey, this is what's happening. I need you to move more, or get more sunlight, or move less, or do less, or stop hating me so much. It just only knows how to say joint pain, brain fog, migraine. So it's through a lot of these listening practices, these somatic practices that help you get in touch with what's happening in your body, that we can then start to learn the language. Think about when you're learning an actually like a verbal language, if you are an English speaker, you're trying to learn Spanish or Chinese, if you're trying to learn Spanish, you have to listen to the words and the sounds and the tone. You have to listen to these things before you can ever even start to speak the language. Of course, you can learn first by reading, and if you're only reading it in your own head and you're not practicing with anyone and you're not listening to anyone else speak the language, you might learn all of the language, all of the words in the Spanish language, and then you might go to try to talk to someone for the first time thinking you're fully fluent and fully competent, and they won't understand a word you're saying. That's because we have to communicate with others in order to learn this language. So again, when you're looking for working through pain, physical and emotional, that comes along with a chronic illness, you don't have to find somebody who has been through exactly what you've been through. And I even take back a little bit that they have to have gone through like any chronic illness. You can definitely find therapists who can help you a great deal, who've never been through a physical chronic illness. So long as they have enough experience working with people who have been through immense grief and loss, and they're comfortable with being in that arena with you. So that's what we're talking about here. We're talking about leaning into trust, even when we have no idea what that feels like, and how, and all we know is that trust means potential for danger. And we have to make a decision about what it's going to take from us and for us to engage in a healing practice. Again, whether that's talk therapy or any of the wide range of therapy practices and physical alternative medicine. But we have to decide, okay, this is going to cost this much money, and I'm going to give it 6 months before I make a decision about whether it's, quote, working or not. And in that time, I'm going to be talking to others who are going through it or who have gone through it, who can help me understand, how do I know if it's working or not? And how do I stay in it when everything feels really uncertain? Again, at some point, you're going to have to make a decision to end a particular treatment if it is using up more resources than what you have and it's not giving enough back to you in return. But when we're thinking about whether it's working or not, I would really encourage you to consider, am I progressing each week, each month while I'm in this treatment? So I might not have no more emotional outbursts. I might not have no more pain. I might not have no more sadness. These things I might not have yet, and maybe that was my goal going into it, to get rid of anxiety, to get rid of depression, to get rid of chronic pain. And that's not happening, so therefore this isn't working. Instead, I encourage you to say, okay, well, I woke up and my anxiety was just uncontrollable from morning to night, and I'm waking up several times a night, and or I'm freaking out on my partner all the time, several times a day. It's causing a lot of stress here, and after 2 months of working together, I'm still having a lot of overwhelming emotions, but maybe now I'm freaking out at my partner 5 times a day instead of 15. or I am waking up once a night instead of 5. So it's about looking back and saying, have I progressed? Have I gotten better? Knowing that healing has its ups and its downs. So things might backslide a little bit sometimes. But then when that's happening, do you have somebody who you trust that can support you through that backslide? Again, that might be your therapist, it might be a friend, it might be an online community, but somebody who can say to you, hey, I see you. I know you're struggling. I don't have the answers for you, but I am willing to sit here while you figure it out. I'm willing to even help figure it out with you if that's what you're wanting right now. I think a lot of us get really stuck, rightfully so, when we don't have that kind of a person there for us. And the reason why advice is so difficult when you're talking to someone that you know nothing about, for example, me talking to you on this podcast, is because for some people, you might literally not have that person in your life. And for other people, that person might be there, but you might not be able to see it. So I could sit here and talk about ways to build trust with the people around you, but if you're listening in and there is literally no one trustworthy within your circle, that's a whole different topic that we're talking about. And the advice that I give is not going to work for you. So in therapy, the whole point of therapy is to have a relationship with somebody who can accurately see you, paraphrase things back to you, ask you if that paraphrasing is correct or not. Your therapist should not be making assumptions about your life. They should be listening to you and really, really digging in with curiosity. And if they're wrong, you should be able to tell them that they're wrong. And then they should respond with something to the effect of, thank you for letting me know. Now we can move forward being on the same page together. And that's a reparative experience for many of us. I don't know many people that were raised in a home where a child said to a parent, I don't like the way you're talking to me, or I don't like the way you do X, Y, and Z, or when you do this, I feel upset, without the parent then responding with, who do you think you are? You're a child. You don't know what you're talking about, or this is just the way things are run in this house, or something that maybe doesn't sound exactly like that, but the essence still is the same, that the child is not worth listening to. So then we grow up into adults who are not children anymore, and so we have this kind of built-in power authority just by being an adult, and yet we don't know how to regulate our emotions. Therapy is a reparative process in helping you learn how to properly regulate your emotions. It should not be somewhere you go to just learn some coping skills to hide your big feelings. It should be somewhere you go to process your big feelings and to have someone sit across from you and to say, those big feelings are allowed. They're actually allowed. You are human for feeling those feelings, and I see you and I hear you, and we're going to get through this moment together. And when you have that experience with a therapist, you can then leave your therapist's office with a greater sense of self-efficacy, self-esteem, confidence, capability. We learn through modeling, and that's our job as a therapist, is to model for you what it is you're so desperately trying to achieve. And so now I have a favor from you all. I really love doing this podcast, but one thing that it really lacks is the ability to talk to the people who are listening to said podcast. So that just comes with the game, but I would really appreciate if you have any questions or any thoughts that you will, if you're listening on Spotify, you can answer the Q&A that I'm going to put here. It's kind of a Spotify only feature. If you're listening on Apple or Google, please feel free to send me an email or better yet, DM me on Instagram and let me know your thoughts about this podcast. Again, are there any questions that come up for you or any confusions, or do you have any insights that, you've really learned from this podcast in particular? Please let me know, because I am an extrovert at heart. So talking with anyone who is listening really kind of gives me energy and allows me to really post more episodes. So thank you for considering, and if not, that's okay too. Thank you for listening. I appreciate every single download. This has been a really, really fun, the best project I've ever done. So again, thank you so much for listening and being here. If you learned something new today, consider writing it down in your phone notes or journal and make that new neural pathway light up. Better yet, I'd love to hear from you. Send me a DM on Instagram, email me, or leave a voice memo for us to play on the next show. The way you summarize your takeaways can be the perfect little soundbite that someone else might need in order to better absorb the same lesson. Lastly, leaving a review really helps others find this podcast, so please do so if you found this episode helpful.